Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Well, it's 6 o'clock on Monday, and we're here with Carrie Audino. This is our very first live web streaming event from my TV, so we're very, very happy to be here and really happy to have Carrie agree to do this with us. My name's Andreas, and I'm with my TV. A couple of things about tonight, just to give this a little bit of context. We're going to talk a little bit about Carrie, who she is, and sort of how she got started in the arts. And then we're going to talk about the job, what is a casting director, generally speaking. And then the third section, we'll talk a little bit about best practices, how to communicate, how producers and directors and writers and showrunners and actors communicate with a casting director, and how a casting director communicates back with all those departments. And then we're going to talk about the actor's experience, how a casting director approaches casting, and best practices and protocol and sort of good habits to have when walking into the room. Of course, you can live chat. We have a streaming chat window going here. So as questions come in, we will be asking Carrie. So thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks for tuning in, and we should get started, right?
I think so.
So you're a Jersey girl.
I am.
Yeah, born in New Jersey?
No, born in New York, in the city.
In the city.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in the city?
I did not. I grew up in New Jersey, but I was born in Manhattan at NYU Medical Center.
Uh-huh.
There you go. And I grew up in New Jersey.
And, well, you went back to NYU.
I did. It's.
So what did you study there?
I graduated with a BFA in drama from NYU.
Why'd you just laugh?
I don't know. I did. I studied acting at NYU.
And so acting, that was your
It
first...
was, yeah. It was what I thought I was going to do from the time I was really young. I was focused on musical theater and singing and dancing. And then I started to focus more on acting, and I went to NYU and just did acting, no musical theater.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the Strasberg studio studying method acting for 4 years. Exactly.
Right.
A lot of relaxation.
A lot of relaxation.
Wish I still remembered it, actually. Be good. What else? I did that for 4 years, actually 5, because I studied at the Institute for a year after graduation as well. And then realized I needed a break from method acting.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I realized I needed to break from all of it because I got an internship at a casting office during that period of time.
Oh, what brought you to acting in the first place? I mean, what was the original draw?
Why I wanted to be a performer?
Yeah.
I was a dancer. I started dancing when I was 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. And I thought I was going to be a professional ballerina.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, when you really are in the dance world, by the time you're 11 or 12, it's clear whether that's happening.
Right.
Maybe even younger. And I started to really want to sing, and I went to a performing arts camp called Stage Door Manor, which a lot of East Coast people probably know.
Mm-hmm.
And that place kind of changed my life. It was like hanging out with other kids that wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I got to do musicals, and it's when I became really serious about it.
Okay. And so you studied, who did you study method with? The method with?
Jeffrey Horn and Irma Sandry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know Miss Sandry.
She was tough.
Yeah.
She was tough. And it was very valuable. All of it. Everything I studied, everything I did as an actor absolutely informs everything I do as a casting director.
That's actually my next question on this subject is what did you take from your acting experience and your acting training that now informs how you approach storytelling?
A lot of it. I think the way I approach other actors and knowing that I I'm still a creative part of the process.
Yeah.
Except it's not about me. It's about helping someone else through that process. And I think I have a lot of empathy because of it.
Right.
And I think I know how to speak to actors because I was one.
Right.
And I think I can get to things fairly quickly with actors a lot of the time because it's a shorthand.
Well, that's apparent from your resume and the work that you've done that I've seen. So, all right. So you got a job as a casting associate.
Well, I started out as an intern. I was bartending at night. And I was a casting intern at a commercial casting office, a big commercial casting office in New York, Liz Lewis Casting.
Sure.
And I was there, 5 days a week, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And interning. And a few months in, I was supposed to be still being an actor, but I wasn't. And a few months in, in New York, everybody lives in all the boroughs and they carry around suitcases for auditions all day. They don't want to go home and change in between. It's too crazy.
Oh, we're going to talk a little bit about those suitcases later.
We are. I know. And for commercial casting, it's a little different, so we can talk about that. But
Okay.
I watched someone come in with this big hanging bag and all this stuff. And I said loud to Seth Yanklowitz, who is now one of the VPs of casting at Fox.
Yeah.
We had our first casting job together.
Okay.
I said to Seth, wow, I'm so glad that's not me. And he was like, it's supposed to be. And I was like, yeah, it's not. And that was it. And I had found a home in casting that felt ultimately infinitely more comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And I sort of continued on from there.
So-
Worked at Liz Lewis and then I went out and started doing theater in New York.
Yeah.
And then some small features and short films. And I was young. I was only out of college a year or two. And then I came to LA and did some production work.
Yeah.
Got to make a living. And then after a few years of that, went back to casting.
Yeah.
And got my first casting job as a casting associate on Boston Public,
Right.
which was my first TV show and my first TV job.
You were relatively young for the assignment, weren't you?
I guess I was probably, 25-ish, 24-ish.
Well, so just let me check real quick at
And I started working for Laura Schiff on Boston Public, who is now my business partner. And we have a casting business together, Carrie Audino Casting.
Okay. Sorry, I was just checking the live chat real quick.
Are people chatting?
Yeah. Ryan's got a question, and Ryan, we'll get to your question about mentorship later on in the podcast, if that's okay. We'll get to it a little bit later when we're talking about the acting portion, just to keep things online here. Speaking of online here, if for whatever reason we lose the connection to the interweb, we'll be back. We'll just have to reboot and get started again. So make sure that you tune back in. We're here until we say goodbye. So bear with us.
Settle in.
Settle
it's going to
in.
be such a long night.
No, not at all. So you were a casting associate and then became a full-fledged casting director also on Boston Public.
I did. It was a crazy kind of journey on that show. Laura and I really clicked professionally very quickly. And she really mentored me. She really,
Laura Schiff.
Yeah. Helped to really inform my taste and helped to really inform, how to make decisions about what actors to bring in. And my instincts were always very good about that, always. And I think that was something very positive for her, that she was never having to be like, oh, I don't love that actor. She was like, oh, yeah, me too.
Right.
And I also brought a lot of New York actor ideas to the table. I'd be like, oh, you don't know this person? I know him from New York, and he's amazing. And, so
Right.
she liked that.
So you touched upon two things that sort of have to do with what a casting director does. And one of them is you said you brought some New York talent in that LA casting directors might not have been aware of. So one of the things is being aware of who's out there and what they're doing. What, just if you could generally speak about what the job entails, what's important about the job, how to approach it, and from a storytelling perspective as well, like an interpretive.
Well, I mean, there's lots of different ways to do the job.
Right.
And I think the way, I mean, first of all, it's a craft. You can't go to school to learn it. I think, people say, casting directors are born, not made. There are some people I think that actually instinctually have the right instincts for casting, that know what it needs to be and understand how to speak to actors and know what actors fit into parts, and they're not right for this, but they'd be great for that. And so you really learn it, and you learn it by learning actors. That's the most basic part of the job, is having a humongous database of actors in your head or in files, and
it's just over the course of time.
There's no way to accelerate that process. With the internet now, it's actually insane. I can't imagine having started when the internet existed, because we really had to know everyone, and there was files of headshots, which doesn't exist anymore. Everything is online, and you can pretty much look up anyone or anything in 5 seconds, which has changed it in a good way, I think. In some way, it's changed it. It's good and bad. Technology, has its downfalls.
Just because now it's such an overwhelming amount of...
It's an overwhelming amount of submissions and just input.
Right, I can see the double-edged sword there. It's so much to sift through, but at the same time, you get to see more people. You do.
We're still only humans. We actually can't see more than we saw. We can turn it around quicker, but we can't see more than we ever saw, because it's still the same. That part hasn't changed.
Yeah, there's still only 24 hours in a day.
Exactly.
And from a story perspective, what is that like? Where does the casting director fit into the process in, I guess, the development of the project? Because you're entering, well, in the case of television, you're entering at the pilot stage. So you're really just assembling. You're putting the human beings together that are going to comprise a cast to tell a story. So what sort of goes into that?
It's different. TV is a little bit different than it is for film, and than it is for theater. We do work primarily in television, although we do films as well. But TV, we often start with a pilot script, and you sit down with your producers and they and talk about what they're looking for each of the series regulars, and what kind of feel they want for the show. Do they want it to feel super commercial and shiny and actors that are all really attractive, or do they want it to feel grittier and people that look a little bit more like everybody else? And you start talking about the look and feel of things.
Okay, so you start sort of, just to use
that's a
terminology, like you start layering textures in, or the producer, the network says this is the texture that we're going for, and then...
Well, the producer and the network are different. Working for networks and studios, which when you're doing things at a certain level, they're integral in the process. Often it's the studio that hires you. They're the ones that throw your name in the hat to the producers. So, and it's thought that the studio is the partnership with the producers. They're the creative partnership. They're helping to produce. And that the network is the person that's going to air it. And everybody's got opinions. And I think part of our job, especially when you're doing, network pilots during pilot season, is trying to make a lot of people happy.
Right.
So it's not just your producers. You're talking about network people that want a certain thing, studio people that see a certain thing, and producers and your creator.
Well, it's a collaborative environment, and ultimately that collaboration is what informs what the final...
Yeah, it is collaborative.
What the alchemy is going to look like, if there's going to be alchemy.
Exactly. Yeah. It is collaborative. And we all sit down and talk about, all of us, generally network, studio, and producers and creator, as a group, what we're looking for. And then we put out a breakdown and get going.
Now, I know that since we're talking, well, Actually, I'm going to back up. Let's talk about film.
Okay.
So what's different about film casting?
Film casting, when you work for, there are studios there too, and those are the ones that are releasing the pictures and often producing them. Depends.
Mm-hmm.
But it's much more of a director's medium.
Mm-hmm.
Directors, are the helmer of the project. He is at the helm of it, and they sort of decide what the tone is going to be. And
so as a casting director, when you take the meetings, you're taking the meetings with the directors and sort of getting a feel for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And how's this working relationship going to be? And
exactly.
Are you on the same page as far as the
and
story?
it honestly doesn't make sense to do a project that you're not on the same page with the director as.
Okay.
And TV, the directors often are only there for an episode or two.
Right.
They don't stay throughout the project. Sometimes they do. But so often you're collaborating on one episode with a director.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have an overview they don't look at the big picture of the show as much as when you're doing a feature.
Now, I know in television and certainly in film, in television it would be the showrunner, the producer,
Mm-hmm.
that has the ultimate say, and in film it would be
The director.
The director. I was going to say the producer, but okay.
It's the director.
It's the director.
Almost always.
All right. Now, okay, so it was a question of signature, since we are talking about the casting director's department. Is there a style or a signature, or I'm at a lack for words for how to describe this, but can you tell the difference between casting directors and the way that they cast a show?
Absolutely.
I mean, without any kind of value comment, just in general.
Absolutely. There are people, that have signatures, and there are casting directors that have actors they really like.
Yeah.
And are those people are peppered throughout their projects. It's the same as directors and features having people they work with. If you look, there's a lot of directors that have used a lot of the same actors in their movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have good collaborative relationships with them.
Yeah.
They always deliver.
Right.
And that's why casting directors use the same people too. Because you know that you can count on this person to deliver, and they're going to make you look good. They're going to make the project look good.
Yeah, so if you cast somebody that doesn't deliver, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I know. Sometimes you don't hear when they're doing well, but you always hear if they're not.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a no news, good news kind of a thing.
Well, I think that I hear you. I think that ultimately, everybody's trying to do the best possible work they can do, and we are all very focused on our individual arts or crafts or pursuits, and so it's easy to forget that there's this person out there, this whole department out there that is, visualizing what the human element of a show is going to be like, and then juggling that human element to get magic to happen, and then the fact that when it doesn't happen, it goes right back to them. The complaint goes right back to the casting department.
Yeah. And I mean, it's to us, Laura and I always talk about how we are helping to tell the story, and we're helping to tell it with the actors, and there's production designers that help to tell it through the visual part of, of what you're seeing on screen, and creating that world that all these actors are going to live in. And there's lighting department that helps to light everyone, and makeup to help create more character and to make them look beautiful or not so beautiful. And it's, it's incredibly collaborative in those ways. But casting is where it begins. I mean, it begins with a script, but the next step to me is the cast.
Yeah. So, what kind of homework do you do?
I watch an outrageous amount of television.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and and I try, in the movies, I see as many as I can see. Before I had a child, I saw a lot more. But I eventually catch everything.
Okay.
It's my job.
Right. So you're watching television to keep up with what showrunners are doing,
what other casting directors are doing. Casting directors certainly that I admire. If I don't love a show but do love the casting director, often I'll check it out, because they always do good work.
Okay. I'm just going to take a moment here. Feel free to have a drink. Just taking a peek here. Oh, Coralind, I got your question right here. We'll pick that up in the last part of the conversation when we're talking about the actor's experience. Again, seems like we have a lot of actors tuning in. Maybe we'll just get to that section.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
you know?
Yeah.
We can get back to all the other
All right. So
stuff.
we'll talk about we will talk about actors. Well, so we have a question here from Ryan. How does an established actor attain a mentor? I'm going to jump in a little bit on this question too, because I'm an actor. I've also worked as a producer and a director in documentary, narrative, and stuff like that. So I've done a whole bunch of different things. And for me, finding a mentor was something that was always very important to me. I ultimately did find a mentor as an actor, and I did find a mentor as a producer. I think that the way that happens is just by remaining curious and being very hardworking, no matter what environment you're in. So that if you're pursuing acting, I'll just deduce from your question that's what you're interested in, Ryan. When you are in class or actually out there pursuing the acting, always put in your best effort. Always be curious about what you're doing, because ultimately that's how you'll draw the attention of your mentor. And then finally, with enough experience, you yourself are your own best mentor.
Finding a mentor and it's about not being stagnant as an artist. And I don't know, and that means different things for everyone, because everyone is moved by different things as artists. So I think, always being fresh, and like when you have an audition but haven't had an audition in 4 months, you're nervous and you're going to walk in the room and be flipping out, and like all of your eggs are in that basket. And I think in order for it to be this happy place that you live in as an actor, and to be able to find a mentor, and is to stay busy, get in an acting class, do theater, take audition technique classes, go to movies, be doing research, watch the TV shows you're right for, follow casting directors' work that cast things that you would be good for. You have to just keep your brain alive with your creativity. And I think the more you feed yourself creatively in other ways besides working professionally, because that's not up to you ultimately. There's a lot of things that have nothing to do with you that go into making decisions about who gets jobs. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that you have no control over. You have to harness the things that you can control and control them.
On that note, we have a question from Coralind about how to get back into the swing of things. If you've sort of gone through a period that we've all as artists go through of stagnation, of periods where just things aren't happening, is there a way that you can suggest to jumpstart it? How do you get back into the swing of things?
Get your confidence back.
Class.
Act.
Yeah.
Act, whatever that means. Student films. It's probably not going to be that easy for you to get back in there and get an agent right away. Mm-hmm. Or maybe ever. Mm-hmm. It's a hard thing to do. So it's act. Yeah. Devote yourself to your craft. And also devote yourself in life to things that make you happy. Unhappy actors don't book jobs. They don't. They just don't. And, we can tell when you're unhappy when you walk in the room. We can tell when you're desperate.
Yeah, I guess that's going back to being a collaborative environment, so that if you're going to be on a set, you want to make sure you're with somebody that's going to...
Definitely. And we also want to make sure that you're ready.
Yeah.
And you got to just do it all the time.
Thanks for the question, Coralind. You mentioned in an answer to Ryan's question about getting into class, and one of the classes that you mentioned was audition technique. Now that's something that I haven't taken an audition technique class, and I know I'm not a very good auditioner. What is the value? I mean, is there an actual technique to auditioning?
Yeah, I mean, there's just the basics of being able to, take notes and incorporate them quickly, to be able to hear what people are saying and figure it out and not be so stuck in what you were rehearsing that you can't change. Learning how to be off book enough that you can be acting and not reading off the page.
Now, is it important to be off book?
It depends on the show.
Because I've heard, conflicting.
It depends on the show. On Mad Men, you would never come in and change the words. It's just not. The words are part of how we maintain the period of the show. And it isn't so much about the acting. It's about making sure those words are accurate. If you add ums and yas, and it all of a sudden becomes pretty contemporary. Right. So, and people add ums and yas when they don't know the words to stall.
It sort of on a related tangent, but still a tangent. One of the amazing things about Mad Men is that there's many things to comment, and it's not an interview about that show, but as far as the casting is concerned, the writing is capturing a certain time in American history, but the certain time that it's capturing is a very dynamic time culturally in the country. It's when cultures are slamming up against each other, and there's these continental shifts of culture within America and the world. The 50s going out and the 60s coming in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, lots of big change.
Yeah.
Humongous change for our country, the world.
How do you account for that on a casting level when you're calling actors to come into the room and they actually show up? I mean, how do you do that? How do you account for whether or not this person can be a part of that change? You see it happening in the workplace, and all the other departments are treating it as well.
The whole show is about getting good actors. It isn't about casting people that are period appropriate. It's about casting good actors that can be simple and live in a moment and tell the story as written, and there's a lot of people doing research on the show, and it's all historically accurate. So we try and, keep it as accurate as possible with the casting.
Nash has a question here. How likely is it for a good but untested actor to be cast as a supporting role in a series? The question is general.
As a series regular, I guess. As a series regular.
A supporting role is what he asks, yeah.
As a supporting role, like as one of the guest actors that come in, and it depends on how big the part is. It depends on how much of the storyline they're driving forward. Would you cast an actor that's never been on a set before to be in a scene with Kiefer Sutherland, which is another show we cast, Touch, or John Hamm? Probably not. You probably wouldn't cast someone that's never been on a set before to be in this giant scene with one of these actors, because you don't realize how scared you are until you're standing in front of them. And it's intimidating.
There's also a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts, and the moving parts are secondary to the actual fear that will take over.
Right.
And you want to make sure, like I said before, that you're ready. And, you can build up to it. Somebody that, can say a couple words in a scene, or a word or a line. We need actors to do everything. We cast everybody that speaks. Some people have a word. Yeah. Some people have 10 scenes.
Right.
And everybody's at different ability levels for that.
So how do you get there? How do you get to the place where you're able to carry or be part of more critical scenes? To
be part of like moving storyline forward. And I think that it's about working. It's about working, and having a really good audition, of course, helps. But you generally are going to have the credits on your resume to get in the door. for the bigger parts.
Does it ever happen that an actor walks into the room and just wows you guys?
Yeah, with younger actors all the time.
Okay.
Because younger actors haven't been around as long, so their body of work is not going to be as large, with a few, exceptions. So younger actors all the time come in and you're like, wow, this person absolutely knows what this needs to be.
And you can tell just from the way the person walks in the room.
Often, yeah.
Okay.
But generally people that are, when you're a 40-year-old male actor coming in for this big guest star lawyer, you're competing with a lot of other people that have played that part or have done that kind of work at that level before. And if you've never done it, it's going to be harder to convince the casting director that you deserve an opportunity when there's hundreds and hundreds that have done it.
Right.
And I mean, that's the reality. That's, I don't pull any punches.
Right. Oh, good. Hey, we're happy to have you. That's what this is about. Todd, sort of related. Do you seek talent outside of the local pool? So basically,
on the project.
Yeah, let's take that question specifically, but also incorporate, please, into that generally. How is it that the submission process works? I mean, I know that you cast several shows, so let's just try and talk about different.
We cast only through agents and managers through the breakdown services. Who people that submit through breakdown, and also pitches on the phone from agents and managers. So if you don't have representation, it will be very challenging for you to get an appointment in our office.
Okay, but there's other casting offices that...
There are other casting offices that do, that will post things on Actors Access, which is people can then submit for themselves.
Right.
We don't put our auditions in Backstage. We don't post any of our casting notices anywhere other than breakdown. So, and our associate does workshops. I also do them periodically, which is a good place to meet actors that don't have representation. And it's a good way to sort of get on our radar, especially if you're looking to do smaller parts, which often people in workshops are because they're just looking to get experience. It's not usually people that have a ton of experience. But it's a great way to meet casting directors and casting associates and get yourself in front of people that you would not otherwise have the opportunity to meet because you don't have representation. And I think in New York and Los Angeles, going to those reputable workshops is key. Is key. It can be a very important piece for a lot of actors. That's me kicking the table.
That was you. Yeah, we're in California. I heard that noise. I'm like, oh boy.
We're having an earthquake.
We're having an earthquake. Well, we have a question from Barthalamu. Sort of goes back to one of the sections that we jumped in order to get to the acting part of the conversation, which is specifically, how do you identify a casting director? In Bartholomews' case, it's for New York theater. How do you go about finding a casting director? I think Bartholomew, if I'm looking at this correctly, you're a writer, so I believe from what I'm reading, you're a writer actor. Okay, so we'll take it from both perspectives. One, as a writer, how do you find a casting director? As a theater producer, how do you go about finding a casting director? Like, let's just say, if you're a Broadway producer, obviously you have those avenues to casting directors well established. So let's go for an independent producer trying to put up their off-Broadway show.
I mean, you would probably put it in Backstage. You would probably have to post it somewhere that someone also who is just starting out, or it just depends on what level you're at, really. It's
or My TV.
Right, you put it on My TV. Yeah, it just I mean, people have things like that on Craigslist.
Yeah.
For me, it was always word of mouth, which I know is kind of a hard thing to gauge for people, depending on where they live and how connected they are in all these communities. But it was always like, oh, my friend's looking for a casting director. Let me hook you up with that person. And, can you help him with his short? Can you do this? But I came from a community of artists. I came from people at NYU that were creating,
right?
Filmmakers and writers and directors. So I did have that community built in a way that I know a lot of people don't. But yeah, I mean, I guess there are places. I mean, I know that there's industry publications where people post that kind of thing. You know, look, I think there's one called Below the Line.
Okay.
Which is, I know that people have, you know, job postings there.
There's also Mandy's, but that might be more European. I mean, I believe anyway. So hopefully that answers your question, Barthalamu. Thanks. We have a question from Nash. It's a question about expectation, and when we have representation or an agent or a manager here to interview them, and we will have one coming, we'll ask them as well. But from the casting department, what sort of expectation can an actor have about whether or not their agent is submitting? Let's see. Can an actor expect his agent to actively promote him if he's not well known yet?
I would hope so.
Right?
If they're not, you have the wrong agent.
Right. So
it's very important that if you have an agent or manager, it's very important that you connect with them and that you feel like they're on your side and that they're on board and that they know how to market you appropriately.
So your office gets constant calls.
Constant.
Yeah.
Constant. Emails, phone calls, IMs. I don't know how they have my IM. But, you know, it's constant. And, like, that's their job. Like, I'm not annoyed about it because it's their job. They should pitch. They should be calling me and pitching actors. It's only moderately annoying when the person is very not right.
Right.
But,
Okay.
you know, and that
makes sense.
That's a whole other part of the process for us. You know, you deal with a lot of agents and managers. And some of them you have incredible relationships with because they are also creative people and have the same kind of taste you do in actors. And when they say this person's great, they always are.
That's part of an established relationship. I mean, you've
Absolutely.
gone through the trial and error there.
Absolutely. And then there's a lot of people that just want to get their actors in the door, and they will lie and do anything to
Right.
get them in.
Okay.
And that is not creating a good relationship with me because
Right.
it's wasting their actor's time and mine.
Right.
Because they're pitching someone that's not appropriate, that would never book the job when I could be spending that time with someone that would.
Now, just to
And is it valuable to me to always meet actors? Yeah, but when I'm looking for a certain thing and I have a very short period of time to do it, I would probably like to meet that actor at a more appropriate time.
So just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, you cast several shows, and you will continue to cast because you guys are great. Your office is great. So is there any value in an agent or a manager presenting a new client, maybe somebody that you haven't seen? I guess this is going back to the idea of a general meeting.
It depends. You know, there are certain generals that make sense.
Yeah.
And there are certain generals that don't.
Okay.
Actors that actually have an established body of work, it almost makes more sense to sit down with them because you know what their body of work is, but you haven't seen them in a long time, or they were mostly in New York and you've never actually auditioned them. And that to me is valuable to kind of get to know who they are, because these are actors that maybe won't audition, but you want them, they want to be on your radar, and you want to know who they are. So you sit down and have a meeting with these people and say, oh, you're here now, and okay, and what have you been doing? And, but then there's also, an actor that has a very small body of work, sitting down and chatting with them about their hopes and dreams is not as useful as auditioning them. Because it's not as important to me who you are as a person, but actually what you can deliver in the room. And obviously I hope that you're a good human. And that if you get hired, you'll treat everyone respectfully,
right,
and be a professional human being, which we're a pretty good gauge at the minute we meet someone. We're pretty good judges of character in that way. That's part of our job, as well as judging talent. But, auditioning to me is always way more useful than a meeting.
Okay, you touched on the human element, and I have a question here from Amelia about workshops. We'll get to that immediately after I get this question in, Amelia. The human element. Yeah, you hear, basically has to do about just basic protocol and professionalism going into auditions.
I should not have looked at my phone.
Oh, bad?
That's
okay.
fine.
All right. What is sort of, generally speaking, best practices to observe when going to an audition? And I'm not talking now about the performance aspect, although if you think it incorporates into the question, by all means. But do you shake hands? Do you do this? Do you do that?
Do's and don'ts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every office is different. Every casting director has their own pet peeves.
Right.
I just like it to. It's a business transaction.
Okay.
I'm running a business, and you guys are hopefully treating it like it's a business. It's a creative business. We're really lucky to be in a creative business, but it's a business.
Yeah.
So I think thinking about it in that way when you're auditioning is helpful, because you should be keeping in mind your time frame. How much time am I taking up?
Mm-hmm.
Did I just walk in and tell a 15-minute story, and not get to what was at hand?
Right.
You might, and that's not the best.
Got it.
You're not thinking about who else's time you are taking up.
Right.
So being aware of time, and I'm not saying being rude. Walk in, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Yeah, crazy line at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sucks. Okay. Oh, I like that dress. Thank you. Great.
Got it.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
And pleasantries, of course, be a nice human.
Right.
But, we are always going to be nice to you, because it's never going to serve us to be shitty.
Oh yeah, you get
Never.
you get an actor to come in that acts professionally, that can do the job. They're saving you a ton of time.
A ton.
So
And
you're actually rooting for the actor.
always,
Yeah.
no matter what experience level you're at, you have to say one word, or you have 10 scenes to do. It's literally, we are on your side, and I'm going to be pulling for you.
Cool.
And I'm going to be helping you get the job. That's what my job is.
What about practical things like if you
No props.
Right.
Not necessary. Not in our office. I have very rarely worked on anything where a prop is appropriate.
Yeah.
You never ever would bring a gun into an audition, fake or real, or a knife. Never ever ever.
Okay.
Especially I don't know you as a human, and then you're going to do a scene where you're pointing a gun at me when I'm reading with you.
Yeah.
No, it's a good way to get security called. And it's like this universal gun. I got it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Totally works. Phone. People have cell phones now. They can just hold their fine. Cell phone's fine.
Okay.
So
Costume?
No costumes.
No.
Now, in the case of Mad Men.
Period, hair, makeup?
In the case of Mad Men, it's going to help you tremendously as a woman to probably have heels and a skirt on.
Yeah.
It's going to help you.
Right.
I would not recommend flip-flops and ripped jeans.
Got it.
It's probably not what you're going in for on the show.
Right.
And same with the men. It's going to help you a lot to put a suit on. A lot.
So aim for the style of the show, but not necessarily the period or the character.
You do not have to go bananas. You should just be appropriate. You should not ever, almost never really, depends on what you're playing, but any of our shows, I'm always like, really? A lawyer? You're wearing flip-flops? Can lawyers wear flip-flops? Yes. Will they on the show? Probably not.
Got it.
So it's you just want to think about it in that way. What's going to help you as an actor feel more like that person?
Mm-hmm.
And you should do it. Do you need to wear a doctor's coat? Nope. No stethoscopes. No cop outfits. It's just not.
Right.
Hopefully we have enough imagination that we can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you should be off book enough that you don't have to have your head buried in the material.
Also, practically speaking, what about a scene that has some sort of action in it? I don't know.
We're going to try to not give you that as an audition piece.
You're an EMT that has to go from here to the gurney back to the phone or something like that.
I know. The medical shows are hard with that, especially. We did a pilot last year that was a medical drama, and it's a lot of walking and talking and jargon. And
so how do you, what's a good, based on success in the room?
There's always a chair.
Right.
And you say, I'm going to use this chair as the patient. I'm going to use the back of the chair as the patient. I'm going to, you know what I mean? You could just create enough of it that we
get an idea.
Right. If we're killing you, are you throwing yourself against the wall and falling to the ground? Probably not. You know what I mean? We just don't need, we probably don't need that. And if we do, I most of the time we give a heads up if we need major action stuff.
Yeah.
And say, you're going to be required to do this in the room, and it's going to be, we try to not give that stuff for auditions because it's hard. It's hard to recreate without the other person and all the action and the running, and it's hard. We would hopefully try and give you another one of the scenes.
Right. Cool. So let's see. Amelia is asking a question about workshops. Now, I know that you did teach workshops at one point. You're not currently.
I just don't have as much time as I used to. But I do them periodically.
Yeah.
They're great. I really think they're valuable for actors, especially without representation.
Yeah. It gives them an opportunity to
get themselves in front of casting offices that they don't have access to.
Right.
You know, if they don't have an agent or manager, most of the casting offices in Los Angeles, you know, it's going to be hard for you to get in the door there.
Now, this with no endorsements, is there some workshops that you're aware of that you can recommend? Yeah, you can't. Got it.
But
totally understand.
But there are good ones in Los Angeles, and there are good ones in New York. And you just have to, you know, any place that's going to make you, like, you should be able to sit in on one to see what's going on. The same with acting classes. And they should not make you pay the first time. You should just go and check it out. Okay. Some of them make you even audition, which, you know what, is okay. It's, you know, I know that is another hurdle for actors, but, you know, sort of part of the gig.
Yeah. Well, I think that basically that covers it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, for me, is there any stories that you No, probably not a good idea.
Can't tell stories. I signed like confidentiality agreements.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't want to. I don't. You know. But
no, you know, being I can't stress enough how important it is for actors to be happy and happy outside of the business of acting.
Yeah.
And how much it will help you with your work.
Just more grounded, more in touch with the situation and where you are, and with.
Yeah, and like you just, if acting is the only thing that you have, if all of your eggs are in that basket, and that basket is, you know, if it's not serving you at that moment, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a hard road. If you can fill your life with other things that you enjoy and love, it's gonna be easier for you ultimately. You know.
Cool. There's a question from Ryan. We sort of talked about it a little bit, Ryan, and it's about, can an actor submit to auditions without representation? Not in our office.
I mean, you can mail things in. We haven't opened mailed submissions in so many. I mean, it's just everything's electronic now. Mm-hmm. So it's not. By the time we get to it, the role will be cast.
So you like most casting directors come up also through sort of ranks of apprenticeship to get to be able to deal with bigger budgets and more pressure and so on and so forth. So from your personal growth as a casting director, is there a parallel growth that you could suggest to an actor that, you know, some apprentice, like they can start in a class and then start going to this kind of audition and getting to these kinds of projects?
It's a different path a little bit. Yeah. You know, for us, it's just been working, you know, developing really good working relationships with the same people and having them hire us again and working a lot, working and having successful projects and working some more.
Yeah.
And I mean, and for actors, yeah, the more you're working, probably the more you're going to continue to book.
Is there a place that you can say, okay, this is, I mean, there is no answer. How does it start? How do you get in? Everybody's got their own story, but is there, generally speaking, like you submit yourself to smaller roles? Or
I think if you have a small resume, or like, let's say you only have theater on your resume, or maybe you have nothing. You need to be willing to do one word. You need to have your SAG card. Yeah. Because SAG or AFTRA, which is now the same, and but all the shows I do are union. So you get fined if you cast people that are not in the union.
Right.
So we generally try and only see actors that are over 18 that are union. All right. There's waivers for people under.
Cool.
But yeah, you need to get in the union, and you might need to do that by doing extra work. And you know what? If you've never been on a set before, doing extra work could be a really useful learning experience, because you're going to be on a set and you're going to see how it works, and you're going to see how the other actors that are hired there move through the world. And you could learn if you decide to, not read your book all day, because there's a lot of downtime, and you really decide to pay attention to what's going on there. You could learn a lot.
There's a question here from I'm seeing on the stream from Rose, which brings up an interesting point. she's cheering on the South Florida contingent of actors. Thanks for joining us, Rose. But the question that I'd like to ask, based on what Rose is saying, is how do actors from other states get seen, what do you recommend an actor, in Rose's case from Florida, do locally to get into one of the bigger?
Well, I mean, now, honestly, there's a lot of production in other parts of the country now. It's not just New York and Los Angeles. There's huge amounts of production in North Carolina. Huge.
Yeah.
There's lots of productions in Canada, of course. But there's productions in Nashville. There's shows shooting in Nashville. There's shows shooting in Idaho, in Utah. I mean, there's a lot of production other places. So you should do some research and acclimate yourself with the casting directors that are local. I know, like, there's the casting directors that I know work a ton on the Eastern Seaboard, are the Finn Cannons. And they cast a ton of stuff out of North Carolina and Georgia. And I think they cover Florida. They cover a lot of the South.
Right on.
So, you should acclimate yourself with all of those local casting offices, because they are out there.
Right.
And if you search it online, on Google, you will be able to probably find most of them.
So
you should submit yourself to them, because they are always looking for actors. Always. Because then there's people like us that need local casting, because our pilot or our movie is going to shoot somewhere other than Los Angeles or New York. And we are looking, and we hire these local casting directors, and they're pulling resources from all over, their general area.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing in London. There's lots of London casting directors that we end up working with on projects, Australian casting directors, and all of these people, work a lot and are always looking for local talent. So you should definitely acclimate yourself with those guys, and moving out here, and
well, this is just one, right? It is.
It's like, sure. I don't have advice other than want it.
Yeah.
If you think you kind of might want to be an actor, you should not move out here. But if the only thing in the whole world you can imagine doing, give it a shot.
Being an actor, well, here's a question that you just inspired in me. There is a creative element, obviously, to being an actor, and then there's a business side of the actor. They don't teach you the business side.
No, I know.
In conservatories or acting schools or acting classes.
They're starting
generally.
to more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is there just general, helpful, broad advice from your experience that you could share about the business side of being an actor? Now, not the minutia, but just as far as it pertains to your experience.
Have good headshots. Have really, really good headshots. It's your calling card. It's what we're looking at to get you in the room. We look at reels and whatever, but they're often not applicable. You know what I mean? Especially if you're dealing with actors that are not very well known. What's on their reel is probably not going to inform you enough to be like, yeah, I should see them. Often it's the opposite. You have this reel, because everyone's got speed reels on Breakdown now. And it's like this 30-second or minute-long thing, and I was going to bring this person in, and I watch the reel, and I'm like,
So your resume and headshots.
Resume and headshots. You got to have good headshots. They have to look like you. I mean, they can look like the best version of you, but they better look like you.
Right.
Don't let your mother choose. You know what I mean? It's just like, she is going to love you no matter what. Or she's going to say something negative. It depends on the kind of mother you have. But, you need to have good headshots. You should spend the money on it. And there's all different price ranges, and obviously you shouldn't tap yourself out getting headshots, but a good headshot's gonna be very valuable to you. And having your resume formatted properly, I'm obviously looking at TV and film credits first, but if you're interested in going out for theater, you should have your theater credits listed first. I always look at training, because I am trained and it matters to me. Education and training should be on there somewhere. I don't think special skills are necessary, unless it's a skill, like a real skill. Like, you're an amazing singer, it's a real skill. Okay. You're an amazing dancer, skill. Amazing guitar player. Any instruments that you are really good at, it's a skill. Driving a car, not a skill.
Not in LA, maybe in New York.
But no, but you know what I mean? Like there was a time where people were like, I have a driver's license. I can do this. I was like, yeah, it's not a skill. Horseback riding, skill.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So the skills really should be skills.
Okay.
Oh, foreign language is a huge thing. If you speak a foreign language fluently, have it on your resume.
All right.
Because we are often like, I hope this guy speaks Spanish.
And
Like, I
also,
mean, you're looking and their agents submit and they say, yeah, he speaks Spanish. I mean, they could also be like, you know, they,
sí se habla.
right. So you often, we say in the breakdown, must speak Spanish, but half of the people that are submitted don't.
Okay.
So if it's on your resume, I'm hoping it's true.
Final question. Do you cast non-union under Taft-Hartley?
We under the age of 18, unless it's a special set of circumstances. There was a role in Boston Public long time ago where we were looking for a 16-year-old girl that needed to be 350 pounds. It was part of the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not an easy type to come by. When we put out that breakdown, I truly think we got 20 submissions.
Mm-hmm.
And an average submission is somewhere between 500 and 2,000.
Wow. And what's the turnaround between submission and cast? And roll cast?
Oh, it could be 2 days.
Wow.
It's usually the breakdown goes out on a Monday. Spend Tuesday pulling the rolls, maybe Wednesday. But you probably have your first session Wednesday.
Wow.
And then you have, you're still pulling, and you have another session Thursday. You're still pulling, have another session Friday.
And then the
Depends on how many.
callbacks and then...
No callbacks.
No, okay.
TV moves too fast.
Okay.
Features, sure. Different process.
Okay.
Months, it could be months on one roll on a feature.
Right.
TV, it's 8 days of prep, 8 days of shooting.
So hopefully we got...
Wait, but no, let me finish
Nash
on the 350 pound,
Okay.
16-year-old girl. We ended up putting it on Actors Access. Truly, we looked everywhere, all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And we did find someone, but she was not in the union.
Mm-hmm.
We also needed 18 to play younger. Like
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want to pay, they didn't want an underage actor. So it was a tall order. And we did find someone. We did Taft-Hartley her.
Okay.
And she works to this day.
Okay.
And it's nice, she got her SAG card from the thing. But when you Taft-Hartley, you need to have an excuse. You have to write the union and say, this is why we chose this person that's not a union member as opposed to all these other union members.
Right.
And if you do not have a good excuse, you'll get fined. And the fines are expensive. It depends on how long the actor is working for and how big the part is and it's basically, how they figure out what the fine is. But most productions don't want to pay fines on anything. It's not.
Yeah.
You tell producers you're going to get fined, and they're like, "What?" So no fines.
No.
So we don't do a ton of casting of non-union actors unless they're under 18, which is different.
Well, guys, thanks a lot for your questions. Thanks for participating. Carrie, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
For making it out here and being a part of this, our first webcast.
I'm thrilled. It's my TV's pretty amazing.
That was awesome. Thank you very much. Hopefully we can have you back. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions in the coming days.
I'll come back.
Yeah, cool. So, guys, thank you very much. Really appreciate you participating in the webcast. And we'll look for your comments on the site. And please let us know what you thought of this. Of course, this is our first one. So if you have any suggestions or anything whatsoever, please feel free to communicate it to us. We're here and we're listening. So once again, thanks guys, and have a great night. Bye.
Bye.